Hey guys, what's going on? I just wanted to make a quick video today to show my settings for getting 120 FPS while speedrunning a Resident Evil 3 Remake. I've seen others complaining about not being able to get 120 FPS and having to upgrade their PC to do it, but I'm pretty sure that you could do it without upgrading your PC unless it's like really old. I've seen other people making these videos as well, showing their settings, so I thought that I would do it as well because my settings are slightly different and I might have some tips for you that others might have not had. So to start out, let me show you that I'm running on a 1700X AMD Ryzen 7 1700X. That is not an expensive CPU at this point. You could probably get one for about 150, maybe even cheaper if you go used. And then I've got a 1060 GTX 1060 6GB, which is a GPU that's like €200. So if you take into account the other, the other components that are in my PC, this PC is probably like, at this point, probably like €500 in total. You could pick one up for this much, or, you probably have one that's slightly better than this or slightly worse than this. Either way, you're going to be able to get 120 FPS probably. Just showing you that it is possible on cheaper hardware to do so. Here, one of the first things you want to do is, if you have NVIDIA, right click on your desktop and open NVIDIA control panel. Click on the manage 3D settings and go from the global settings to the program settings and select RE3 from this drop down menu. If you haven't, if you can't find it, click on add and it'll show you what the recent stuff that you've used recently there. Select RE3 and it'll pop up here. This first option right here, you probably don't want to turn this on. I don't even know if it helps in this game. It's something that they added recently that lowers input latency. I know it works on stuff like Tekken. It works pretty good on Tekken, but I don't know if it works on Resident Evil 3. It's also a little bit demanding and can mess up, it can mess up your performance, but I set it to ultra anyways, just in case. Here's the setting that you would be looking for though, right here, max frame rate. You just want to click on this, click on and drag this bar till it's 120 FPS. That will limit your frame rate, which will allow you to not download another program. You could just use what's built into your PC already. Click OK, click apply. You're good to go there. Close that. Now let's open the game and I will show you my settings in game. Okay, my frame rate is not displaying. Hold on. That should fix it. All right, there we go. As you can see down in the bottom right corner here, I have 120 FPS. Let's go into my options so I can show you what's going on. All right. Here in the graphics API, I have it set to DirectX 11 because I use NVIDIA, and for sure you're going to get less FPS on DirectX 12 with an NVIDIA graphics card. It might be the other way around for AMD, but if you're running on NVIDIA, for sure put it on DirectX 11. You will get more FPS. Also, if you're on AMD, I'd give it a shot and see if DirectX 12 gives you more FPS. Probably won't, but it might. Give it a shot and try and find out. 1080p, so let's set this to your desktop resolution or your monitor's resolution. Render mode normal. Image quality right here. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but I set this to 80 and it looks pretty good. There's another option that I'll show you later that helps out with this. Refresh rate, set this to your monitor's refresh rate. Make sure this frame rate is on variable. Here on Vsync, if you notice that you did the setting before you opened up the game and it's still 60 FPS, you need to turn off Vsync and then it will be 120 FPS. I leave anti-aliasing on max because it, I don't like looking at jagged lines, and it also is not demanding at all. It's very undemanding. Texture quality, set this to whatever is going to be not in the yellow even on this setting right down here. So I set this to 3 GB. I could bump it up to 4, but then it would go down, or then it would go up to the yellow/red setting, and then I have to turn other stuff down. 3 GB is enough for me to keep high enough texture quality and keep the game running well. Texture filter quality, 8 or 16. Like, at this point, texture filtering is such an undemanding thing. It's like a non-factor in performance, pretty much. At max, just bump it down to 8. Anything below that, you're not gonna gain any performance, probably. Like, you have to be running on really, really old hardware for it to matter. And even then, probably not. Mesh quality, I leave this at max because things start looking weird when you lower it, and it doesn't really impact, you know, it doesn't really impact performance. So leave this right here, mesh quality. Mesh quality and texture filtering, those are the last things, the last two things that you would want to go to when you have to lower something to get higher FPS, because those two things really aren't going to do much. Zelda. Don't have my Resident Evil mug today, it's being washed. Shadow quality, you're gonna want it no matter what. I pretty much, if you don't have a 2080 Ti, set this to low or minimum. I personally go on low because to minimum, again, I'm gonna say the performance impact is like pretty much nothing. Like literally maybe 0.5% of CPU or GPU usage. It's really minimal. Not even, it might not even be 0.5%. But anything above this, you start see it increases the graphics memory usage as well, and you don't want to do that. So like leaving it at low is a good idea. Low or minimum. I personally prefer low because it smooths it out a little bit. I don't like looking at all the banding. There's still a little bit of banding on low, but it's minimal. Shadow cache, absolutely keep this on. I don't know how it is on AMD. I'm pretty sure it's going to be better on AMD as well, but on NVIDIA, for sure keep this on, because this stores, it like, you know, it caches some data for later so that you don't have to always be rendering it. And if you turn this off, you're going to have lower FPS, so keep that on. Screen space reflections, turn this off. The game still does reflections without using more power, let's say. They aren't as high quality, but they're still there. Keep it off because it impacts your FPS a lot. Subsurface scattering, it doesn't really do much visually, and yeah, just keep it off because it does actually impact the FPS a little bit. Like I think it might improve some of the reflections on like the pores and stuff, but it's not noticeable, at least from what I've seen, unless I haven't looked close enough. But you don't even need to worry about this in speedrunning anyways, because you're just trying to get 120 FPS. Volumetric lighting, I keep it on low when I'm speedrunning. You can turn it off. This is one of the biggest impacts out of all the settings is volumetric lighting, but down at low, it's not really going to be that big of an issue. On high, this setting is extremely demanding. Very, very demanding. Even when I was running at, you know, my first playthrough at 60 FPS, I turned this setting down to medium because I was not able to stay at a stable 60 FPS without doing it, and I didn't really see that big of an impact on the visual quality. Medium still looked very good, but when you turn it down to low or even off doesn't look very great, but you might want to do it low or off for this setting right here. Either way. But like I said at the beginning of the video, I like to keep a little bit of, you know, visual quality in the screen while I'm streaming or while I'm playing the game. So I do this. I prefer to sacrifice a little bit the rendering percentage, the rendering quality, and keep a little bit of visual quality, because they added something in this game that wasn't in RE2 Remake that makes up for lowering the rendering quality. Particle lighting low, obviously you want to keep that on low. High is just going to remove FPS. Ambient occlusion, that's one of the other really high demanding graphic options. Turn this off. Don't use, unless you have like a really good GPU, like you wouldn't be in this video in the first place. So just turn that off. Bloom on, like I said, I like to keep a little bit of, you know, quality. So I keep on bloom. It doesn't really affect the FPS that much. You could turn it off if you need to, but I prefer to keep it on. Lens flare, same exact thing as bloom. Doesn't affect much. Here's another thing. This setting right here specifically, if you're playing the game and you're dropping FPS and you're like, what the hell is going on? It's probably this setting right here, motion blur. What happens is, okay, motion blur is pretty cool. You know, you could see on the hands there that it blurs things in motion, but when you turn the camera or anything moves, it applies motion blur to it. And that even especially when like you whip your camera or you're turning, it's got to render the image and it has to render the motion blur at the same time. And motion blur is extremely resource heavy, especially in movement. Like if you're standing there and like, oh, it's not affecting anything, it's because nothing's moving. You're not moving, nothing's having to be, you know, put the effect on when you're moving the camera. If you notice, you turn it on, you move the camera, your FPS goes ugh. You turn it off, you turn your camera, nothing happens. That's why when you move your camera, you're losing FPS. Depth of field, I leave it on. You could turn it off. This one does have a little bit of an impact, but it's not that big. The lens distortion, I keep it on because it just looks nice. And this one, you might want to turn this one off because this one does have a little bit of an impact, but it makes the game look a lot nicer in my opinion. Here is the final thing, the one that I was talking about earlier. This was not a thing, if I remember correctly, in Resident Evil 2 Remake. This is the option that allows me to put the game at 80% render quality and have it not look that bad. So if you are having trouble if you got your monitor, you know, at 1080p, the in-game, and you're at 100% render quality and you have this off, this setting, and you can't get 120 FPS, go up here, drop this down to 80. I wouldn't go lower than 80. You could go lower than 80, obviously, if you need to. Drop that down to 80. Turn this on. You're gonna gain about, I'd say about 15-20% GPU resources. Yeah, you'll gain about 15%, maybe even 20% of your power of your GPU back, which will allow you to keep higher FPS and not sacrifice that much image quality. Actually, okay, let's go into the game here. As you can see, I'm running at 120 FPS. Game looks pretty damn good. Looks pretty good. I can probably turn on, here, let's see. I could probably turn the render quality back up to 100% here and still have, no, see, there you go. 115, sometimes 120. It drops though, you know? I'm already sitting maxed out here. See, it's going down 102, 105, right? 104. Right here's a good spot for me to show you how this works. So, if I turn that off, see, we're still sitting at the same FPS. I gained 1 FPS. But look, over there, up here, up at the top, sorry, I can't reach up there, but that, the bar there is a little bit kind of more jagged and stuff like that. No? If I turn this down now, I turn this back on, we have 120 FPS. That bar is no longer jagged. Everything is nice and smooth. A lot of people forget that the rendering quality thing exists, and it's a lot better in this than it was in RE2 Remake. I mean, you could bring this down 70, 60%. It's still acceptable. It's a little bit blurry now, but it's still an acceptable image for speedrunning. At this point, my GPU probably isn't doing much. But yeah, let's turn that back up. The 80. Actually, let's turn it up to 100% and let's show you something. If we go down, you could bring your resolution down even, you know? Here, let me resize the image so it doesn't look fucked up. Okay, we brought this down to 1600 by 900. This is at 100% setting. Look at that. 120 FPS. Still looks good. This does not look bad at all. This looks great. You might even be able, if you want to turn up graphic options, you might even be able to turn up the graphic options. You guys that have lower, even lower specs PCs than I do, you know, you could set it to 1600 by 900. You're probably not going to notice the difference with that upscaling thing. The upscaling option does a really good job. Let's take a look at what it looks like on 80% with 1600 by 900. Check it out. No lower than 80 though. Like, I mean, you can't go lower, but at 80%, 1600 by 900, it looks almost exactly the same. I'm getting 120 FPS, and at this point, you know, my GPU is not doing much at all. There's this, you know, this is doable, you know? 1600 by 900 at 80% resolution. Look how much it still looks good. If you guys want to, you know, turn up graphic options, here's a solution for that as well. Let's do another thing. Let's go down to 720. This is at 100%. Look, the image. Oh wait, hold on, I forgot. I need to resize it for you real quick. Check it out. Image still looks all right. The upscaling option in this game is pretty good. Not gonna lie, it actually is pretty awesome. It doesn't look like garbage at all. If you were to set it to this in RE2 Remake, it would look pretty blurry. Like, really blurry probably, you know? This game does a lot better option at looking better at lower settings. I'm gonna try to lower this to 80. This might start looking weird, but maybe not. Let's find out. I mean, the image is a little bit softer at this point, but check it out. I mean, it still looks okay. The image is way softer at this point at 720, 80%. That's getting a little bit towards, like, you know, maybe the limits if you're a stickler for visuals. You might not want to go beyond this if you're looking for visual quality as well as speedrunning, but like, I mean, this is still acceptable. Especially if you're just trying to speedrun. I bet my GPU, hold on, I want to check how much GPU percent I'm using. I'm using 30% of my GPU right now. That's how much you can lower the demand on your PC by lowering some of these settings that I'm showing you. But yeah, let's bump this back up to 100%. You have a, I mean, this doesn't look like a 720p image. This looks like a 1080p image, almost. Like pretty much, I can't tell the difference almost. This looks fine. This is one thing that they built in this time around that is really good. Like, yeah, I don't know what else to say apart from that, because it just does a really good option, this upscaling thing, and it turns the image into a way better, you know, product, let's say. It's way more acceptable. You can lower stuff and you're good to go. I think I've probably run out of stuff to say at this point. Just let me turn my graphic options back up before I forget. Turn that back down to 80. Hit the screen, okay. Also remember to sorry, I'm derping out a bit here. To calibrate the brightness of the game, because that'll help a lot if you're noticing that the game's like washed out and stuff. Do this calibration correctly. It will make the game look better instead of all washed out. Let's see, hold on. Let's check what this looks like in here. Looks pretty good. Not really any jaggies going on. I mean, the floor, because that's just the thing, you're not going to get rid of that until you run at like 4K. But everything else looks really good. I mean, you saw I have everything at low, right? And it still looks pretty awesome. Let's go down to the extreme. Well, not even the extreme. I'm gonna go down to 720 and put it at I'm gonna have to reset it after this again now. But yeah, let's put this at 100%. Let me stretch this screen back out for you again. Also, I'm playing on a 40-inch monitor. I'm guessing a lot of you guys are probably gonna be playing on like 27 inches, 24 inches. You're not really gonna probably notice any of the differences in lowering, you know, these options. I mean, that still looks like a 1080p image right there, man. Like, take advantage of what you have here. Yeah, I'm gonna set this back, and then I think I'm gonna end the video because I don't have too much more to say. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope it helps some of you out that might have been having issues with this. There are definitely options for you to be able to get 120 FPS out of this game. If you guys enjoyed the video, please remember to like it, comment, give me a sub here on YouTube if you'd like. Come over and watch me live on Twitch, twitch.tv/NolaForBones. Link will be in the description. And yep, I hope you guys have a nice day. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I should be able to help you out. All right, take it easy, guys.